Ready to cast spells and slay foes? Literary Rose here with I Dream of Indie to offer you my review of Steve Jackson Sorcery on the Nintendo Switch. Steve Jackson Sorcery is a single-player, choose-your-own-adventure fantasy RPG developed and published by Inkle Studios and based off of the original series of books by Steve Jackson, which were released in 1983 by Penguin Books. You play a hero tasked with the retrieving of the Crown of Kings, an artifact that was stolen by the evil Archmage. You need to recover the crown in order to prevent the Archmage from gaining the crown's magical powers and becoming the ruler of all of Titan. This is very much a life or death quest that will decide the fate of the land and all those who live upon it. So it is a heavy weight set upon your shoulders as you exit the Shamutanti Hills, the first entry in this 4-part game series. All entries are collated within this game, so once you have completed one part, you can move on to the next, in which you may transfer your data from the first part or start fresh. I don't suggest you start fresh unless you want to struggle and fail through the rest of the game. At the start of the game, you choose between a male and female adventurer, which only offers a slight text change in pronouns. After that, you're set off into a world rich in interesting characters, towns, creatures, and of course, ways to die. Your two primary methods of attack are your physical attacks, which engage a unique battling and bluff system, and your spells, which can make a battle easier or eliminate the issue or foe completely. For your sword or fisticuffs battling, you have a set attack meter that you can adjust based on how hard you wish to attack your opponent. You have a range for your attack meter, which drains with each attack and replenishes when you do low power attacks or defend. Deciding whether to defend or attack is based on your understanding of what the enemy will do next. If they plan on defending, a low power attack that only uses some of your attack meter is the smart decision, so you still get in 1 point of damage without draining your meter, leaving you prepared to attack again on the next round. If they plan on doing a medium power attack, overpowering them with a stronger hit can unleash some heavy damage. Each point of damage given or taken is deducted from the stamina of the character. Once the stamina reaches 0, the foe is defeated, or you're dead. If you die or took more stamina damage than you would have liked in battle, you have the option to replay the battle infinitely. So it is possible to perfect all battles and take no stamina damage. That is, if you are clever, lucky, and patient enough. Typically, you have more stamina than the foe you are facing, but whatever stamina hits you take are permanent hits to your ability until the next time you can eat and rest to replenish some of that lost stamina. And that's if you have the rations or gold to do so. Stamina is one of the most important meters to watch out for in the game, since it is what you use to do just about everything. Battle, cast spells, take several actions. Speaking of spells, let's talk about that system next. You have the option to take a spellbook with you at the start of your journey, which the game highly advises you do. Although, if you are thick-headed enough, you can decide to do your journey without it. I don't recommend this option since it makes the game extremely difficult, but if you like pain, go for it. More than 50 spells are at your disposal and listed in the spellbook, but you cannot access a spellbook during battle or event prompts, so make sure you have them memorized or keep a little guide at hand for reminders. Your spells are made up of 3-letter incantations that you assemble in an odd little space spell dimension, where letters float randomly in a globe fashion in the center of your screen, and you must navigate around them to select them. This form of casting spells was a cute quirk, but I did feel it was a bit unnecessary and a bit of a slowdown, since you can just try every letter combination to see what spell it will result in without committing to it. And the game tells you exactly what those 3 letters result in as a spell, as well as what item you might need to do that spell. This was great for me since I didn't remember any spells and I was, at first, too lazy to keep a guide nearby. So I just chose random letter combinations to see what my options were. This did take a little time, but not that much, since each time you're given the option to use a spell, you only have some letters available, which according to the lore of the game is dependent on the stars' placements in the night sky. These spells can be instrumental in obtaining items and passing certain events without drawbacks or struggle, as I learned in my first playthrough. For instance, you can battle the Manticore with your sword and do the whole song and dance of the stamina, bluff, and strike system. Or you could just cast 3 spells: Daze, Fireball, and Electrify, and then finish it off, no attack system required. You can also open locked doors, read minds, strengthen your sword, talk to animals, although I will say that the really interesting and fun spells require a specific item to cast it. My personal favorite spell is Jig, which you need a bamboo flute for. Cast Jig and an attacking enemy suddenly loses control of their limbs and begins to dance, allowing you to evade that combat encounter completely. But this doesn't always work. Some enemies seem to be immune to the power of dance, so don't go trying to cast Jig on every foe you meet. Or do, I'm not your mom. Now, let's say as you traverse the dangerous lands of this world, you make a choice you regret. You meant to shop at the merchant, but you accidentally selected the option to leave before purchasing anything. Not a problem. Just rewind to your last action and do things as you intended, or in a way you figured out is best, since your last choice resulted in a poor outcome. I highly recommend using this rewind feature, which unfortunately I did not make a ton of use of besides at death screens, at which point I had fucked myself over enough since the beginning that changing one decision wasn't going to save this failed run. And believe me, you will fail a lot. Not because this game is excruciatingly difficult or unfair, but because there are so many options. Do you take the northern path or cut through the valley? Do you rescue the old woman being spanked by a child? Or do you head into the tavern like nothing happened? And yes, that's an actual scenario from the game, and spoiler alert, don't do what you think you should, which honestly might be good advice for any decisions in this game. And that is the wondrous fun that this title will offer you. A world filled to the brim with people, locations, and choices that make a major difference in the rest of your travels, both in the specific part you're playing and the 3 other parts that follow. There is no telltale your choices matter bullshit. He will remember that. Whether you choose to save the witch trapped in a cage, and how you choose to do so, because of course there are many ways to approach this encounter, will shape the rest of your experience. Steve Jackson Sorcery is a riveting title that, in my opinion, truly encapsulates the choose-your-own-adventure style from books into a game. I say this now because I feel guilty for not loving this game. It is of no fault of the game itself, because as I said before, it's a fantastic game. It's just too many options is a bad time for me and my perfectionist brain. I fight against just having fun. I want to do it right, the best way, the optimal way. So instead of just rolling with my choices, I overthink and I replay a particular choice again and again to see how my run would go differently if I had made a different choice. And then if I don't like the choices as I go along, well, let's just start it all over again from the beginning, which of course inevitably led me to a forum with a PDF guide on how to get the best run possible by detailing every single choice you must make, which in my opinion just ruins the entire premise of the title. And you know, it's not fun when you're just pressing commands a guide tells you to, skipping through dialogue to the next event. I will say, if I were to levy one criticism, or rather call for what I would say is a quality of life improvement, it would be a manual save feature, so that if you have a player such as myself who just cannot bear to go forward without testing out every single possible choice, well, let me have different save slots. And then I can follow particular routes, and I don't have to replay the intro of the game over and over. That would have been swell. In essence, I'm the kind of person that hates buffets because there are too many choices, and there is only so much room in my belly, and I want to try it all. You might be saying, Rose, that's weird. And to that I say, now you've noticed I'm weird? You must be new to the channel. So hello, welcome to I Dream of Indie. Please stay. I love you. Not really. but also let's develop a parasocial relationship where I am your queen and your taxes are due. Pay me. My strangeness aside, Steve Jackson Sorcery is a hefty game that offers you more than your money's worth in gameplay and replayability. Unique monsters with distinct attack styles, a minigame called Swindle Stones that made my brain hurt, and a map so expansive that you are bound to miss out on some unique little stops along your journey, which just encourages you to either rewind a choice or just play again and experience everything you missed out on. The visuals, in my opinion, are sublime. I adore the black and white hand-drawn aesthetic of the characters, as well as the page-length art that accompanies some of your gameplay. It's detailed, easy to see, and brings me back to the nostalgia of my youth of reading fantasy novels in bed or at the library. Outside of this black and white style, you have a colored map that is also hand-drawn and a sort of 2D, 3D mix, and completely reminiscent of the maps you might find on the front pages of a fantasy novel, with the names of different areas scrawled across them. Inkle Studios have absolutely nailed the style and tone of this game, paying beautiful homage to its book origins while bringing it into a modern gaming space. I wish I could offer the same level of praise to the sound design, but I did find it a bit lacking in some regard. The music that is there is beautifully orchestrated and matches the tone of the game perfectly, but there are vast swaths of gameplay with no music whatsoever. I can see how this is not just useful but an advantage in a horror game to build suspense, but in an adventure game, it just kind of slowly drained the energy out of me. I think some background, jovial or adventurous tunes would have made a major difference in my experience with the title. The touches of sounds like dogs barking or horse hooves clopping upon the ground and other related background sounds was nice, but not enough. I tried playing this docked and handheld, and I was happily surprised to see that the game was an equally fun experience in either mode, but I did encounter some light bugs in the form of crashes, which thankfully were sparse. The game seems to save frequently though, as unless it crashed during a combat encounter, I didn't find myself losing any progress, which was a nice little treat after a crash. There are no settings or accessibility options to mess with outside of muting the audio, so unfortunately for players that need more options, you won't find that here. I definitely think an idea for the future, if funding is possible of course, could be having the option to have a narrator read aloud all of the dialogue and all of the text, although I imagine that might clash with the whole choose your own adventure mood. All in all, Steve Jackson Sorcery is an incredible title that I highly recommend you check out, especially if you are a fan of fantasy, RPGs, choose your own adventures, and reading. The crown is in need of acquiring, and there is a world in need of saving. Go forth.
Thank you so much for supporting clickbait-free content here at I Dream of Indie. We would now like to take a moment to shout out our brave indie warriors and legends that help make this channel possible. At the Indie Warriors tier, we have Bill, Christian Cruz, Adriana Amato, CJR, PSC, Julian Colbus, Jesse, Ray Lynn, Marky Mint, Dave Hart, Peekaboo, Lex Noyle, Strick9, and Chic Geek. At the Indie Legends tier, we have Jen Rose, Larkison, Mitchell Hall, Peach, Skepticism, C. Coyle, Nathan Moore, Chris Jackson, Mr. W, Blue Francis 14, The Beefarinis, Business Cody, Carmen Red, Jace Glover, King of the Hatch, and Ophidian Mind. Thank you so much for everything that you do for independent developers, publishers, and for I Dream of Indie. Head on down to the description box below. Let's defeat the gaming echo chamber and bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming.